Happy New Year, everybody. Welcome to the season finale of Cowboys Overtime here on StarTelegram.com. I am Fort Worth Star Telegram columnist Mac Engel, and I'm joined by my friend, Mr. Nick Harris, who after a season plus is finally on the video intro of Cowboys Overtime. Bravo. Do you feel like you're finally part of the team, Nick?
Man, I made it. I really did. It's incredible.
Just send that one to
people are more
Mom.
upset. Do you think people are more upset that they have to watch one more episode of this or one more game of the Cowboys?
That's a good question. Well, let's jump right into it here on New Year's Eve. The Dallas Cowboys flop of a season comes to its unceremonious close on Sunday afternoon when they play the New York Giants in New Jersey. This is how bad this season and this game is. Cowboys Giants is a ratings killer for Fox. Ratings machine. Easy money, the biggest ratings grab in the NFL, usually reserved for NBC's Sunday Night Football.
Yeah.
This game is being played at noon in the regular season finale slot. The Cowboys are 7-8-1, powering through to what could be a very Jason Garrett-like finish. Meanwhile, the Giants, which have fallen to a depth that only the Arizona Cardinals can appreciate, are 3-13. The Cowboys are 3.5-point favorites. There's a lot of elements to dig into here, but as we go into this last regular season game, Nick, is there anything that you're looking for at all, or is this just about, okay, everybody, you're a pro, they're paying you, play it out and try to win?
Well, there's always something to look for. I will mention, though, before I dive into that, Cowboys open as 6.5-point favorites. I love it. Are you Mama Claus?
I am Mama Claus. Thank you very much.
Excellent.
It's not an official title, but it's unofficial, but I appreciate that. Yes.
They opened as 6.5-point favorites, dropped to 5.5 yesterday, and now they're at 3.5 today.
Why?
So I don't know.
What do they know? What does
Vegas
Vegas
knows
know?
all. Vegas knows all. So I'm wondering if it's, all right, Dak Prescott's going to start and then Joe Milton's going to finish the game, and maybe they're trying to account for that. But, yeah, fascinating. And Vegas, let me tell you, I'll remind you, Vegas flipped the odds on Brian Schottenheimer before he even had an interview, before anybody really knew that he was a candidate. So Vegas knows when it comes to this Cowboys franchise. But about the game itself, yeah, I would like to see some Joe Milton, see what his developments looked like over the course of the year. Got a chance to talk to him on Monday, and definitely in the right headspace for the opportunity. Jaden Blue, I think you're going to see him in this game. I'm almost positive you'll see him in this game. There's a lot of injuries in the running back room. He'll get a share of carries. And then on the defensive side, I mean, just throw out everybody you have. Elevate the entire practice squad. You can only elevate 3, but take the fine. Just elevate everybody and see what everybody has. But no, I think this defense is headed for an overhaul. And if it is, why don't we just get a head start on figuring out who the guys are behind who you are going to get rid of, just to see what those guys have.
So one question about you talk about throw out everybody, there was a lot of hope and optimism. I thought it was justified too, after the trade deadline acquisitions of Quinnen Williams and Logan Wilson rather, that they had something. And now Logan Wilson can't even get on the field. A point that Jerry Jones was a little mystified about, that he expressed when Kenneth Murray, who has been pointed to as a major problem for this defense, a little unfairly, I might add, but he hasn't been very good. Logan Wilson can't even get on the field for a snap in their most recent game. And Jerry comes out and says, yeah, I don't get that. I mean, what happened here on this particular move that the Cowboys defensive coaches said, this guy isn't better at all than Kenneth Murray?
Yeah, I'm going to tell you what happened, and then I'm going to give you a couple of my reckless theories. As far as what happened, he was supposed to be getting a share of snaps in the game. He did not end up getting on the field, not even for special teams. And so they burned an active roster spot for a guy who did not step off of the sideline on Christmas Day.
And time out. I want you to give some proper context for that. You've got 53 guys.
Yeah.
How many guys, and that spot's usually a big deal. They got to do something. You've got to bring something. How many players on defense, offensive line's different, Certainly the backup quarterback is different. How often, or usually how many players on defense don't even step on the field one time in a game?
Very rare.
Right.
Very rare. And if it does happen, it's because, hey, there was a guy who was a game time decision and he ended up playing, and that backup that he had that may have come in to get some rotational snaps instead, he would still be reverted to special teams, Mac. He would at least be getting special team snaps.
Yeah,
Logan Wilson didn't even see that in this game. And so, completely burned an active roster spot on Logan Wilson. And, Steven talked about it after the game. Jerry talked about it. It was miscommunication with the linebackers coach, Dave Borgonzi, along with Matt Eberflus. Again, he's up in the booth. He can't just walkie-talkie down to the sideline to say, hey, why don't we throw 55 into the mix?
Nick, the technology doesn't exist. There's no way to communicate. There's just no way to do it.
It's not like he has a headset on, I'll give you my theories now. My one reckless theory, this is probably the more reckless theory, but I'm going to throw it out there anyway. And I'm not the reckless theory guy, but I think there might be something to this. You remember last year when Mike McCarthy just didn't play Jonathan Mingo? He's like, look, I'm getting burned here anyway. Yep. I didn't want this guy. Yep. I'm not playing him.
Yep.
I kind of feel like that was Matt Eberflus saying, I don't want Logan Wilson. I got Kenneth Murray over the offseason. He's going to be my guy that plays down the stretch here. I'm going to burn with the ship that got me here. That's one. Secondly, I forgot my second one. That's
a good one. I mean, and just to give you some historical context, I have seen, because I've been around the team, I remember a couple of those petty moves between a coach and the front office, and they're just little digs, and they happen, and I'm sure they happen everywhere with the Cowboys. There's more light shed on it because it's the Cowboys and because they don't win. They don't win at the highest level. But I can remember certain instances. Wade Phillips did it. It was very passive aggressive. Wade Phillips could have written a book on how to be passive aggressive. Bill Parcells, Bill was a little bit more in your face about it. But I've seen that before. So certainly when McCarthy did that with Mingo, I remember watching that thinking, he's just basically middle fingering Jerry Jones on this deal.
Yeah.
And to me, you bring up a great point. It didn't really cross my mind. Is it more like they don't think he can play, or is it more like I didn't want this guy in the first place?
He's better than Kenneth Murray. And so it's not that. I think it's more of a, this is not my guy. This is not the guy I built throughout the offseason with. And if you think about it, Jack Sanborn, the guy that he brought from Chicago with him, can't get on the roster anymore because Logan Wilson is there. And so it's two guys of his that are not being allowed to play. And so, it's a strange one. My second theory, I thought of it while my brain decided to work again. I think he sealed his fate with this one. I think Matt Eberflus sealed his fate with this decision. It's a small thing, and it didn't really matter in the grand scheme of things as far as results go. But when you trade for a guy mid-season and you forget, quote unquote, to throw him out onto the field for a divisional game, that has to seal your fate. And Jerry, I thought, my mental odds went from 70-30 before this, and now it's at like 90-10. I think Eberflus gets fired.
I think it's 99. I was at 99 2 weeks ago, and it wasn't based on anything. And I did have a text exchange with a member of the front office, and it wasn't anything based on that. It was just more about the idea that this organization, unlike some other ones that underperform and just sit still. I'm thinking Cincinnati, Arizona, some other ones. This one is full of motion and activity, and we're going to do something, right? Yeah. We've got to do something. Even if that doesn't really address the problem, they're going to do something. And I thought there's just no way they're going to sit still with this, even if that means you're going to have yet another defensive coordinator for the third straight year, another one. Fourth. I thought, yeah, you're right. Thank you. And I'm like, that's, I mean, but this defense has so many personnel issues, and it just didn't work. So I thought there's no way Jerry and Steven were going to sit still on this. And the one thing, we'll talk about this in here in a second, the one thing I have not seen from Brian Schottenheimer is that if he felt like this was a hill worth dying on, he would fight. And I don't know if Brian's got that in him yet or not. Maybe he does. I mean, maybe he does, but we've seen certain coaches who roll over at the moment. Jerry says, well, we need to do this. Okay, great idea, sir. Or the other one said, no, we need to talk about this. And we need to talk about this. Jason Garrett was pretty good about that, I thought. Not that he always won him. I mean,
Yeah.
he had Monty Kiffin shoved down his throat. He didn't want Monty Kiffin. And that's just one example. There are other ones, are personnel decisions. But on this one, I don't get the impression Brian Schottenheimer, whenever this meeting happens here in the next 10 days, 5 days, whenever it's going to be, I don't get the impression, Nick, that Brian Schottenheimer is going to put up any problems at all about changing out defensive coordinators. Do you?
I would disagree.
Do you?
Because he's fought back on some very minor personnel things, and if he's going to fight back,
which ones?
Things, let me think here.
I don't mean to put you on the spot. I'm surprised to hear you say that.
The running back situation is a great one. As far as whenever it was, hey, Malik Davis is really rising here. I don't care about this rookie. Malik Davis has earned it. Okay, that's what it is. There's been some pushback on the linebacker situation. I will say that. Yeah. I don't think he's necessarily won that, but there has been linebacker pushback. I think he would get a very healthy voice at the table if that voice was actually voiced.
Brian?
Yeah, I think he would.
I think one of the biggest misconceptions about the Dallas Cowboys is the voice and the weight of the voice in the room about a myriad of topics. I think there's this idea that Jerry is the de facto coach and all that. I don't think that's true at all. I think the coach has an enormous amount of influence if he fights back and if Jerry respects that voice.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that Jerry didn't respect Wade Phillips. I'm saying that Wade Phillips, Dave Campo, Barry Switzer, they were going to be more conciliatory because they were just happy to have the job. And Jason Garrett, he had a rhyme and a reason and a method. Mike McCarthy, Bill Parcells. And I don't know where Brian sits on that spectrum. But the idea that he wouldn't have a voice and a vote, so to speak, I don't agree with that at all. But I just don't know where he is. And I don't know if you know that, Nick, either, about where on that spectrum of weight and push does this particular coach have with upper management.
Yeah, I'm not sure I can answer that directly, but I will say the track record is there in 1 year. Look at the offensive staff that he hired and look at the defensive staff that the front office hired. And there's a massive difference between those two sides of the ball this season. And so I would look at that. I think there's only one defensive assistant that can make his way back, and it's defensive line coach Aaron Wycotton. And even he would have a case to potentially be out of the door. Other than that,
you just said such a mouthful there, though, Nick. I mean, the fact that you've got upper management, and it's been going on forever, picking, and they've done it. God, even now that I just sit here and talk to you about it, I can think of instances, multiple instances, when the GM, president, owner, vice president are picking assistant coaches. We're going to hire this guy. What? I'm the head coach. I'm the one who's got to work with this guy in meetings, and you're going to pick him for me? Totally normal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unless I'm wrong, is that a common thing with other organizations?
No, I'm definitely not with the owner. Now with the GM, yeah, but that's where the line gets a little blurred with the Cowboys because who knows who knows what Jerry Jones' actual job title is, you know?
Well, he bought the profession. All right. Let's go on to this other topic because what you're talking about does connect to this somewhat, which is the end of the Trevon Diggs saga and era with the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys have released the former Pro Bowl defensive back who had so much promise and shot out of a cannon early in his career with the team. He was given a multi-big year contract, had some injuries, and then was just drama and noise. And this week has not been a great week in the Diggs household, whether brother Stephon and now Trevon. We debated here on Cowboys Overtime, Nick, whether or not he was even going to see the end of the regular season with the team. We went back and forth on it. I know you went back and forth on it, and ultimately decided with one throwaway game left that has no playoff implications at all, just to cut him now as opposed to waiting one more game. Why did they do it now as opposed to just letting it ride out one more game?
Yeah, this is another situation where I'm going to present the facts and then I have a reckless theory.
All right, no, these are not reckless theories, mind you. Go ahead. I love a good conspiracy theory.
The facts of the situation is there was an issue with Trevon Diggs again this past weekend. After the game on Christmas,
So they're in Washington.
We're in Washington. He's from Gaithersburg, Maryland, so he's not far away from his hometown. His family was at the game. He was going to spend the Christmas weekend with his family in Maryland. So after the game, he goes to Brian Schottenheimer and asks, "Hey, can I stay back?" And Brian, being, they're about to get on the team plane, they're about to get out of there. They only have about an hour between when the game ends, then to get out of the stadium to get to the flight, because it's quick, especially at that time. Everyone's trying to get back to their families. And Brian Schottenheimer says, "No, it's team standard. We fly to the game together. We fly back together, period." And Diggs didn't appreciate that, and he refused to get on the team plane, and he stayed in Maryland. And it caused yet another rift here, and brought him in on Tuesday, and it worked for both parties for him to be released. It allows the Cowboys to finally move on from the mini headaches, and it allows Trevon Diggs to potentially find a playoff team that would be dumb enough to pick him up. And so I think Chicago Bears are a possibility. I think the New England Patriots are a possibility. I would have said the Washington Commanders would have been a possibility before their season went downhill. I think the Seattle Seahawks could be a possibility too. So I don't think he gets claimed off waivers, because then that team would have to pick up the rest of his contract. But I could see a team signing him before the playoffs start to get him on their roster. And then I have the reckless theory, but I'll let you get your point off.
Well, let me start with this. Fly as a team, I understand that. He's a veteran. Had this been, let's see, not Dak Prescott. Dak wouldn't have asked that.
Exactly.
No, hear me out on this.
Yeah, I got you.
It's Christmas. Everybody knows the score. Everybody knows where the season is. Everybody knows, if you've got a veteran who's been around, who's vested, so to speak. Let's say this was CeeDee Lamb, and CeeDee goes to the head coach and says, "Hey, family's 30 minutes away. All I'm going to do is land in Dallas, get on another plane and fly back here 2 hours later or whatever. Can we do me a favor and can I just stay here?" Would they have said, "Yeah, we got you. We understand"?
If the difference is, CD would have asked probably 2-3 weeks in advance, because he's a professional. Trevon did it after the game, and he tried to pin Brian Schottenheimer into a situation of like, "Man, we're already here. Like, let's just do it." He knew what he was doing. He knew damn well what he was doing. He knew he was going to stay in Maryland for Christmas well before after the game. And so I can't get behind that. I can't. It's the timing of the situation, not necessarily the principle of the ordeal. Because if it was 2 weeks in advance, Shotty, let him stay, man. It's too much back and forth. The season's over. You're cutting him in 2 weeks anyway. Like just let it be. But asking after the game, knowing what the standard is for the team, especially with all the things that he's piled up throughout the season with this, that, and the third, younger players are looking at him to see what he gets away with. No, I'm 100% behind Shotty here. 100%.
I think you have to, I always thought, let's go back a couple of years. Remember when Urban Meyer, that disaster, he was coaching Jacksonville, and they had played a Thursday night game in Cincinnati or Cleveland, and he doesn't get on the plane, and he goes and hangs out with his family and a girlfriend.
Yeah.
Moral judgment aside, I'd never heard of ever a head coach not flying back with his team, barring an emergency.
Yeah, and ever. Brian Schottenheimer was on that staff, and he was on that flight. So maybe there's something.
I didn't even know. I forgot about that. But I do think, had this been a guy who didn't have his track record of just drama and noise, then I think in that situation, and you're right, you can't wait until 5 minutes after the game. Hey, by the way, you know what the routine is.
Yeah.
I think if you had, if it was CeeDee Lamb or was somebody else, not Dak Prescott, the quarterback's not going to ask that question. I'm thinking about other guys. And to me, it was just another instance. And I don't get it. I just don't get it. Why? And it goes to his brother too. I mean, Stephon, it's just, and now obviously what he's been alleged in this latest go around is a much, much more serious ordeal than, asking to not take the team plane back from Maryland to Texas. But I just don't get some of these guys sometimes. I'm like, what are you doing? You are blowing life-altering money.
Yeah.
And an opportunity to stay in the league. I mean, everybody should read the book that has not been written. Just follow Jameis Winston's career. That's all you got to do. Just follow, seriously, I'm not kidding. And I'm like, what are you doing? Yeah. And now you look at a player who's clearly in denial about where he is, who's clearly unaware of the fact that he's not the same player he was 3 years ago when he was legit one of the top corners in the league. He's not the same guy. You need to give a team every reason to want you. And now you've given the Cowboys more than enough ammunition to say, get out.
Yeah.
Like, just go away. So my thought, but somebody in who covers the Cowboys, a voice I respect, we know him, a guy named Jeff Kavanaugh. Jeff he used to work for The Fan, and he's a big draft guy, and he's covered, he works for one of the other outlets in town now where Clarence Hill is. And Jeff put this on social media the other day about the Cowboys are cutting this guy, and they're doing this because it's just such another example of a petty front office. And he's tying this back into the Micah Parsons trade, that a lot of this was over pettiness. And I gave that a lot of thought. I was like, is this pettiness? The Parsons deal clearly was personal between Jerry and Micah. And I understand that. On this one, I thought about it. Is this one petty, or is this one just fatigue over drama for a guy that wasn't producing?
Yeah, fatigue over drama. I think I mentioned it on a podcast a few weeks back. I hope George Pickens is really paying attention to this entire situation. Not that George Pickens has had similar antics as Diggs has had throughout the years. It's just a great example. It's a great example of the talent is great until the talent is not there anymore. And then the BS gets really tough to deal with. And this is a perfect example. And if I could, my reckless theory, and you're going to have to stick with me through some CBA talk here.
Okay.
So every team in the NFL, they can when the new league year starts, and the new league year starts in like mid-March, like March 12th or something. It's different every year, but it's like that second Monday. When the new league year starts, they can designate 2 players as post-June 1 releases. So basically what that means is like, hey, we're actually cutting them today, but the money will get spread out over the next 2 years because we're designating it as a post-June 1 release. They can only do that to 2 players. And it was almost a foregone conclusion that Trevon Diggs would be one of them. That's why the timing was a little bit surprising to me. It was like, okay, they don't care about spreading out the money over the next 2 years. They're just going to take the entire dead cap hit in 2026, which it's going to come out to about $5.8 million, and they're going to save around $12.5 million toward the cap. So it's not, anything crazy. But I was like, okay, then I wonder if they have 2 other players that they are already thinking about post-June 1 designating that would either be more cost beneficial to do, or it's going to be close to what Diggs' number is already. And there are 2 prime candidates, Mac. One is Terrence Steele. We've talked about him quite a bit. It's not quite what Diggs' numbers was, but it's in that range. It's in that atmosphere and would make sense. The other one, this is where the reckless part of the theory gets involved, is Kenny Clark. Kenny Clark is, if he was designated as a post-June 1 release, he would have 0 money in dead cap hitting the Cowboys in 2026, and they would save $21 million toward their cap in 2026.
That's not reckless. I don't think there's any way they did this move just based on, and this isn't a criticism of Jeff's theory, not that Jeff's watching this, of pettiness. There's no way they would have done this move without thinking about and taking into consideration exactly what you just said.
Yeah.
I don't think that's reckless at all. I think but my question about Kenny Clark is that of the 3 defensive tackles, and I know Stephen Jones threw out during that 3-game winning streak, which now feels like 10 years ago, that they would keep Quentin Williams, Osa Odighizuwa, and Kenny Clark for 2026. And I thought, there's no way they're doing that. There's just no way. So I always thought, and I think we talked about it here, one of those guys was going to go, and it wasn't going to be Quentin Williams.
Yeah.
It was going to be either Odighizuwa or Kenny Clark. Of the 2, which one is more apt to be flushed or restructured?
Yeah, it's Kenny Clark. The contract makes it's perfectly doable. Whereas the Osa contract, you would have to eat quite a bit of dead cap because you just signed him.
Okay, so it's Kenny Clark. then I don't think that the Terrence Steele thing is done. I mean, that's a foregone conclusion. And I when you look up and down that roster, they're going to take advantage of those two guys. They have to. And to me, it illustrates. Somebody asked me, Mike Ducey from Fox 4 asked me about the Micah Parsons trade. Does the fact that he get injured, does that lessen this trade, the one loss element to it anymore? And I thought when they did trade him, the only way they were going to win the trade was if he got hurt. And because we're not going to know what these two, the one draft pick is going to look like for 2 or 3 years, probably.
Yeah.
Quinton Williams is the other pick, obviously. So to me, Kenny Clark's development and the way he played this season really brings home. And now you bring up a great point. They're going to flush this guy after a year. What a bust of a trade this is going to be for the Cowboys. Because I think you're right. I don't think this is a crazy conspiracy theory at all.
However, it could not only be a cut, it could be a trade as well. So if they were to trade Kenny Clark and get a 4th or 5th round pick out of it, they would still be able to designate it as post June 1.
Who's going to trade for that contract, though, given the player that – and here's the one frustrating thing about this. It wasn't like when they traded Michael Parsons and they got Kenny Clark in return. They got the Kenny Clark who played last season and really wasn't that good.
Yeah, the contract is very doable in a trade for a receiving team because he has 0 guaranteed money left on his contract.
So you think they get a 4th for him?
I think they could. I think a 5th is probably realistic, but I will say this. 36-year-old Jonathan Hankins went for a 6th round pick a couple of years ago, and he is nowhere close to what Kenny Clark's been in his career. So it would be interesting. I think they could get a 4th out of it.
Okay, they get a 4th. Okay, I'll take your word for it. But I don't think that at all is a crazy conspiracy theory. I think that has a lot of legs to it. In fact, I'd put money on that actually happening. Let's move on. Okay, so we talked about it briefly, but we've gone for a while here. Brian Schottenheimer's first year. A lot of new coaches got opportunities this past offseason. Ben Johnson in Chicago, Aaron Glenn with the Jets, other coaches, and certainly Brian Schottenheimer, having never been a head coach before on any level, drew a lot of raised eyebrows, justifiably, with that being hired by Jerry Jones as opposed to Pete Carroll and other potential names that were floating out there. I have some thoughts on this topic, but I'm dying to know what you think about first-year head coach Brian Schottenheimer and the job that he's done.
I'm going to set this up a little bit. Mac, do you remember back when you were in college and you were studying for that PhD for the year electrical engineering? And you had that really hard physics test that you had to take that, man, you're just trying to get a 70 on it. You're just like, man, please, if I just pass this, we can move forward. It'll mess my GPA up, but I can get through. And you get that test back, and you got an 84, and you're like, holy S. Like, I'll take this. That is Brian.
You have described my complete collegiate academic career.
That is Brian Schottenheimer. He got handed the most difficult test possible. Think about all the things that he's had to deal with in his first year as a head coach, on the field, off the field. Mm-hmm. I think he's done great. The overall grade at the end of the day is probably a B. It's probably an 84. But for expectations versus reality, I give him an A+. I really do. I thought granted the cards he was dealt, he took a 2 and a 9, and he somehow got a straight out of it. And so I'll give it to Brian Schottenheimer.
I think he's done a pretty good job. I look at other coaches and how they've done. Ben Johnson obviously done very, very well. The one that really has surprised me, I thought Mike Vrabel in New England would do well. I thought he was. I'm a big Mike Vrabel fan. I didn't think they do as well as they are, but I like that hire a lot. The one that I shouldn't be surprised because it's the organization is Aaron Glenn with the Jets. I mean, that has been awful. I've been really shocked by that. But I think of all of them, you could say that Steven, Jerry, Will McClay, for that matter, they're going with Brian Schottenheimer has worked out. The offense has been pretty creative. I think the guys have played for him. I think the way he's dealt with the job publicly has been admirable. I think he's done a pretty good job. Certainly, they've done some things offensively that they really needed to do that Mike McCarthy just was not doing anymore. But I think if you look at all the guys, even Kellen Moore, the Saints, you look at all these different new hires and you say, yeah, that's been pretty good. And I think your analogy about saying, oh my God, I can't believe I did this well, given the roster that he was handled, and then some of the other handed in some of the other circumstances that happened. Certainly the tragic death of Marshawn Nealand, that would have been very challenging to coach through. I think he's done a nice job. So that's certainly for a reason for hope. And as we sort of take a pickaxe and try to find other reasons among this roster and organization, what are some other reasons that you've seen this season that you would say, no, you've got some reasons to be optimistic?
I think that was a bad start. This offense, this offense is where it needs to be, and
okay, dude, I've been hearing that crap forever. This offense is amazing, greatest show on turf. Yeah. Like, really? Okay, sell me this. Okay, go ahead, Jerry, spin me this one.
I mean, look at the numbers. Look at the numbers. They've been fantastic. I will say, the second half. They need to figure out the second half woes that they have run into these last 3 weeks. They have not scored a second half touchdown since the Thanksgiving game. Isn't that? Or excuse me, it was the Lions game the week after Thanksgiving. They have not scored a second half touchdown since then. That's wild.
How many years have you been covering the Cowboys?
This is my third season.
Third season. How many years have you been following the Cowboys?
I'm 25 years old, so 27.
Okay. How many years have we heard, man, this offense is amazing?
Yeah, it is the same issue. I'll give you that. However, you asked me for a reason to hope.
Okay.
That's still a reason to hope at the end of the day. And you also have the best kicker in the NFL. So
damn right we do, bro.
You got two of the three.
Hey, don't throw Brian. Let's give some love to the punter too. That guy's a baller.
Yeah, and David Beeler, when this offense was rocking and David Beeler missed the extra point on Christmas Eve against the Cardinals. Yeah, we don't talk about that anymore, do we? That's hope, Mac. That's what hope is.
I'll give David a shout. Good. That's good. That's a way to pick that one out of a bag. All right, I got to bring this up because I didn't, and I meant. Speaking of reason for hope, what about the left tackle situation?
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting one moving forward.
Interesting, good, interesting, bad. Interesting is one of those flexible words like fine. It's fine.
Yeah, I would say interesting, bad. It's going to be. I don't think they have their permanent solution there.
You don't like Tyler Smith at left tackle? He didn't sound like he did.
No, he's an all-pro left guard. I feel him, bro. He said, "You feel me, bro?" I feel him, bro. He is an all-pro left guard. I'll keep him there. Tyler Guyton, I wonder if he's the right tackle of the future. I would like to see that experiment get toyed with in OTAs to see. And I'd be curious to see if they swing on a left tackle early in this draft. I think it's a possibility.
You know how many times? I mean, how many more consecutive years is this team going to spend a first-round pick on an offensive lineman?
Yeah, look, I get it to a certain extent because you're protecting literally the biggest investment in the NFL and Dak Prescott. You have to do that. But you have to make sure you hit on these guys too. They've hit on Tyler Smith. They've hit on Tyler Booker. I would say at this point,
Brady was a hit. Terrence Steele. I mean, Nick, hang on. Terrence Steele, considering where he was drafted, because he wasn't drafted. Right. He wasn't drafted. He was in the street. That was a hit.
Yeah.
I mean, you got a multi-year contract, several years out of a guy who wasn't even picked. That was a hit. He just got hurt, and now he's not the same guy anymore.
My hot take is I would keep Steele another year. That's my hot take.
Okay. Well, okay. You know what? That's not a terrible idea. I'll give you this because I've seen over the however many years we have seen this organization go through some struggles with guys who had proven to be good offensive linemen. They had a bad year. They stuck with them, and they came around and salvaged their career to have another good season or two. Flozo Adams and Doug Free jump off the page about that. And I know that probably predates you a little bit. No, but those were players who had been good, had some moments where you're like, oh, God. And then they kind of stuck with it, and they figured it out, and then they salvaged themselves. And I look at Terrence Steele. I don't think that's a terrible idea, especially in light of the fact that Tyler Guyton, he hadn't played a lot, and I'm just not so sure about that. So my thing is, unless you think there's somebody better at a reasonable price, whatever that is, whether it's draft capital or free agency, I'm not so sure that giving Steele another shot is a bad idea.
I will mention, though, there are 3, you can make the case for 4 right tackles that could go in the first round draft. That would be pretty
4 right tackles?
Yeah, 4 specifically. You got you're going to see one tonight at the Cotton Bowl. Francis Mauigoa for Miami. I think that's a possibility. Spencer Fano for Utah. That's another one. So yeah, there's some options.
Oh, Utah's got some players on that offensive line. Okay, speaking of, let's go to obviously the Cowboys at Giants Sunday. Cowboys are favored by 3.5. Who do you like?
I like the Cowboys. I think they get this done.
Yep. So it's going to be a spectacular 8-1 finish. Okay, let's go to the football that really matters, that has relevance, is the college football playoff. And we have reached the quarterfinals. Can Texas Tech do it? Can the Red Raiders win it all? Candy, do you have a thing for us? Wake up, Candy. I think she's already left. Okay, so Texas Tech will play in the Orange Bowl against Oregon on New Year's Day. Texas Tech is a 2.5-point favorite. But before that, the first game of the quarterfinals is tonight, the Cotton Bowl, Ohio State and Miami, by far and away the biggest point spread of the 4 playoff games remaining. Miami is a 10-point underdog. The Rose Bowl is tomorrow afternoon. Can't believe I'm saying this. Indiana University is a 7-point favorite against Alabama. That's some real end of days stuff.
Number 1, Indiana.
Undefeated number. I still can't believe any of that. And then the Sugar Bowl, Lane Kiffin will be there. His Ole Miss Rebels will play the Georgia Bulldogs. Georgia is a 6-point favorite. Now, the question is, can Texas Tech and Cody Campbell, my good friend Cody Campbell, can they win the national championship? Can they beat Oregon?
They have the defense to beat anybody in the country.
Agree.
Unfortunately, they have the offense to only beat probably, let's see, there's 8 teams left, probably only 3 of them. And so
defense? Okay, I don't think they could beat Miami's defense. I don't think they could score on Miami.
I think they could beat Miami. I think they could.
Do you think they could score on Miami?
I think they could score on Miami. Yeah.
Right.
I think they would suffocate Miami enough defensively, like Texas Tech's defense.
Yeah.
Where they just grind that one out. Similar
to
how
it'd be 10-7 or something.
Yeah, similar to how Miami did A&M.
Yeah. Okay, who do you like? Ohio State, Miami.
Ohio State, definitely.
Totally agree. Tech, Oregon.
I want to pick Tech. It's going to be a Tech home game probably, but give me Oregon.
I got to go Tech. Here's why I'm going Texas Tech. Go back and watch the Indiana. You'll probably do this. Go watch what Indiana did to Oregon in Eugene earlier this season, and they didn't let them breathe.
Yeah,
and I was shocked when I watched that. And then watch what Indiana did to Ohio State. That was another one. I'm like, who the hell are these guys? Bama, Indiana. Ole Miss, Georgia.
This one's gonna be fun. But give me Georgia. I have Georgia winning the national championship.
Yeah. Give me Georgia in the game. It's so funny. My heart is all over these picks. No, it is. I just, I grew up in Indiana. It would be so neat. I can't even begin to tell you what this is like for that state.
Do they even have paved roads in Bloomington?
They do have. They just got them. No, it's astounding. And you should talk to Babe Laufenberg, the voice of the radio voice of the Cowboys. He's an Indiana University alum. I'm just so happy for those people because you can't even imagine. Indiana football for generations was just something that was there. It wasn't even something to do. It was just something that was there. But you're going with Georgia to win the national championship. I think that's a pretty safe pick. Do I think Tech could do it? No, I don't think they can score enough. I think they can defend. They for some reason, Jacob Rodriguez and some of those guys get, some crazy touchdowns on defense and stuff like that. I think they could do it. I think they can beat Oregon. I don't know if they can beat Ohio State. All right, we've talked too much. Nick, see you tonight at the Cotton Bowl. Enjoy your safe trip to New York. Candy, if you're there with us, I hope. Happy New Year. Everybody have a safe and happy New Year. We'll see you on Cowboys Overtime next week in 2026.